and welcome to Superintendent's Roundtable. I'm Deborah Vinsel, the Executive Director here at Thurston Community Television. We're pleased to welcome you to the Roundtable again for the 2014-15 school year. It's our first Roundtable, so we have lots to talk about with the superintendents of the four largest school districts in Thurston County. We're thrilled that they could take time out of their busy schedule to join us again, so let me introduce them. We've got Mike Kirby from the Tumwater Schools, Raj Manhas from the North Thurston Public Schools, Dick Cvitanich from Olympia Schools, and Andy Wolf from the Yelm Community Schools. Gentlemen, it's good to see you all again. Trust you all had great summers. Absolutely. We had such fabulous weather this summer, but we're now a month and a half into the new school year, so might as well start with that. Why don't I start with you, Mike? What's new in the Tumwater Schools this year?
Well, we're off to a good start, I think. Our enrollment's up a little bit, and hopefully that'll hold. And we passed our bond last year, so we're looking at design for Peter G. Schmidt, and going to head that direction for Little Rock Elementary in a few months. Pretty excited about things. We're in our third year of implementing TPEP, so people are a little bit more relaxed.
TPEP is?
Teacher Principal Evaluation Process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think folks are a little bit more normalized to that. And so we're hoping for a really good, year where we can focus on teaching and learning with our kids.
Good. Off to a good start in Tumwater. How about North Thurston, Raj?
Well, we had a good start. As far as the students are concerned, we are kind of flatter this year, maybe a little bit a dip. But we have been growing 400 one year, 200 another year, so on average 200 some, but this year is kind of flat. Which is actually to some extent is a relief. We have some way to go before we build the facilities. I just want to say thank you to the community again for amazing support we got. So we're already on our way to really start fixing things on the security side, technology, and a lot of good work already has been done. But the school start has been wonderful, and I'll talk about maybe later one of the, I talked about positive behavior program, PBIS, we have done in our school system, which has really helped us tremendously. We are trying to take it out into the community. We call it compassionate community. So we are going to work with the City of Lacey and hopefully say, okay, together we are a healthy, compassionate community. And it's sort of spreading that awareness of working with each other, and of course that will translate into some of the behavior and other issues and community support.
I'll look forward to hearing more about that later on. Dick, how's it going in Olympia?
I love the start of school. September is one of my favorite months. I think you could say September and graduation. They're also two of the really very busiest months of the school year, and like the others, I'm really pleased with the way our school year opened. Our enrollment grew by about 170 students. In fact, it's the highest it's been since the late 90s, and that's presented a few challenges for us around space. We are anticipating.
Did you see that across the population or in a certain age group?
It's across, and we're excited about that, but we're limited somewhat on space, and so that's presented some challenges, but it was exciting to get the school year moving and see all of the students there. Probably the big issues for us to start the year, we've adopted a new mathematics curriculum, Bridges, and our elementary teachers, that's where the program is, are working unbelievably hard to make sure they understand the program, and I've spent a good amount of time watching our teachers teach it. We're working with our parents. There's a parent component to it, and I'd say if there was a signature piece to the school year in terms of curriculum, that would be it. We are excited that Garfield Elementary finished on time. It's a gorgeous school. We're very excited about its opening. The parents absolutely loved it on our curriculum night. And we're moving right along on Orla up on Boulevard. We'll open and we'll have students in there over President's break. So lots of excitement and lots of enthusiasm to start the year.
Lots of things going on. Andy, how about out in Yelm?
Yeah, great day in Yelm. Always out there. But basically, we're similar to Olympia. Our growth has been kind of a concern. We've been watching it over the years. So again, this year, the nice thing is when you run an open house at the elementary, when all the parents show up, the bad thing is you don't have parking lots and places for those out there. But we're kind of in that situation. We've had to do some shuffling. We did some voluntary asking parents to leave one elementary to go to another. Most of ours are 103% capacity, so we're at that point where the enrollment continues to grow, and we continue to have to struggle with that. So we're looking at some things. We've kind of pulled all the rabbits out of the hat, but our parents are working with us, so that's been really great. We had some leadership changes out there this year. Dr. Steve Bodner has come in, and he's part of our HR department now, and he's done a great job for us. New assistant principal at Yelm Middle School, Craig Curry, another Jody Fritz over at RMS, and so we did some restructuring to try to allow teachers to have and principals to have more instructional time with their teachers too. So a dean of students place that really travels between the elementaries so that the principals can be targeted with teachers one day a week and trying to work on those kinds of things. So just a great start, lots of great kids, and just good to get going again.
Great. Well, we're thrilled to have you here. It sounds like everything's off to a really good start there. There's a lot in the news these days about education and what's going on in education, and it's you often see people from other states or other places at town halls with elected officials talking about something called Common Core, and we've brought it up in the past, but it has dawned on me as I watch these kinds of programs that people who have concerns about Common Core or who are often complaining about Common Core don't necessarily really understand what Common Core is or why it exists or how it came about. So I don't want to get into a detailed discussion about it, but we've mentioned it on this program before, and for the benefit of our viewers, I want to make sure that our viewers understand what Common Core is, the curriculum or the specific courses that it applies to, and how it's implemented and affects our schools here. So I'm going to just toss that out, and who would like to pick it up and run with it?
Well, I can start, and my colleagues can really add some of this. So to me, and all of us, Common Cores are new standards, new expectations, which are tougher and they're more rigorous and more deeper. In math and language arts, I'm an English language arts. So that's the sort of overall context of this.
Math, reading,
writing, yes.
All that.
And the science will come later, so they'll be working on that. But again, they were developed by all states participating together, and governors and superintendents of state education, OSPI from our state. So then the local curriculums and others, they are all left up to the states and the local districts. So from us, I believe, for me, I would say that our state, our nation has talked about for so long, we need to compete internationally, we need to be more rigorous, and kids go to colleges and universities. They have to struggle sometimes in mathematics and other areas. So this is sort of bringing us to the to the level of the international, and kind of bringing us as a nation together. And that is the sort of part which I look at, number one. And the second is, of course, it's going to be quite a bit of work, and because there are new tests and the online, technology, and other areas and expenses and sport and training and development, and it's a lot of work. So one thing I want to say right here is, and I'll ask my colleague to expand a little more on this if they want to add. I would say that we all need to say thank you to our teachers and our principals who have been working very hard, and all the sports systems, all sports staff, because it's new. And for example, last year, we have been working for the last 2-3 years in kind of bringing our teachers and staff along, but we had to deal with the old standards when it came to the test. And we saw some of the dips because we are in a transition year. And so whenever we change major expectations in mathematics and language arts, it's going to create quite a bit of stress for the systems, for people, for everyone. But we are all together, I think, within our own systems here and the region and the state. So I would say that it's a good thing for us, for our kids, for our nation, for the future. But at the same time, it's going to take resources, and that we will talk later, I'm sure, regarding our state funding and other areas. Right. But it's, I believe it's inspiring. We shouldn't be afraid of them, but we should also know that it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of hard work by everyone.
I think a lot of folks may not realize that the criteria for the core was developed at the state level and came up as opposed to being developed nationally and up and then implemented and applied down. I think a lot of people don't realize that.
That's a great point, Deborah, and I think it's been unfortunate that political ideologies have entered the discussion in a number of states, and this was driven up by the chief state school officers and governors in response to making our schools more competitive in one sense, although I think our schools are competitive in many, many ways. But it's not driven by any political ideology, and that's been a little disheartening, I think, to watch how that plays out over the country. But Raj has done a nice job of covering, I think, the basics of it. The piece that I like about it is that it is more demanding. It goes deeper. There is more application of skills. And I think that's really what we want to see. And it will be challenging. We've worked hard to prepare our teachers so they can do a better job with our students. That's part of why we've looked at this new math curriculum that isn't from a big company. Right. It's from a smaller company that's much more agile, and they can turn around to meet those standards, and we're excited about that. So beyond what Raj said, I appreciate the rigor and I appreciate the commitment of our state to sticking with the Common Core state standards and moving forward.
And when you say common, I mean, it literally means across the board. So students in the state of Washington are expected to achieve this level. Well, students in California,
Correct.
Ohio, where, you know.
Clearly the other benefit of it is that for the first time we have standards that go across the nation.
National.
So a student who comes from the East Coast and moves into one of our school districts, honestly at third grade should have a similar curriculum. And so you're not getting gaps in their educational process. It's more of a systems type approach. So a student who goes to the educational process in the United States should have a starting point and an ending point, and there shouldn't be those places where we're trying to fill the holes back in and back that up, because honestly that's been one of our, when you have a transient population, if you have military families that are often moved and shifted.
Which we do.
Correct. So it's nice to have them come when they say, gosh, I'm in third grade, these are my standards. And even across town, moving from one elementary to the other, to have that commonality is really an important thing. And I think the pace and those things are really important. It is a challenge for teachers to change that. And I think what the community sees is that Common Core, the standards are there, but it does not drive the teaching. The creativity and how they get to that Common Core from point A to point B is still left to that teacher. There's still a lot of things that can be incorporated into that classroom, and really a rich process that we see our teachers just developing. They understand the goal, but they can still find many different avenues to get there. So I think it's a richer program. And for the first time, it's not dependent on the teacher to try to figure out what's important for your child. So.
Here's the standard, Mike.
I guess I would just add that if you want to put percentages to it, the state's standards align at about 60% with math and about 80% with English language arts. The other thing is in Washington with the WASL and the MSP ELers, reading and writing were distinct. Now they're together in terms of assessment. The other thing I'd like to say is that I think we all appreciate the added rigor, but the biggest thing I've seen in looking at these is that the content standards, the toughest or most difficult transition is that things that have been taught in the fourth grade in the past will now be taught in the third grade. So it's a transition in that part. And I hope the community is ready to accept the fact that our scores are going to come down. Yes. Because there is added rigor here. And in particular, I'm concerned about math. And the state scores in Washington are already lower, considerably lower in math. I think they're going to come down quite a bit. In the long run, our kids are going to learn more. They're going to go deeper, as Dick mentioned, into this. But it's going to take a while, and hopefully everybody will be patient in that process. The nice part of this is that I think we've been doing a good job in Washington State for a long time. So when you compare us around the nation, even though in the state our scores are going to come down, nationally we'll be very competitive. So
Good.
And that is the only thing, and it has been said here, the communication to our communities and parents is going to be really critical. So we'll be spending a lot of time, not only this year, but the next year and two, and parents assuring them that understand everything new, higher, deeper, tougher standards are going to create some stress for all of us. But they are in term, and for the long term, and they're really good. As Andy said, you know, we have a lot of military families in our school system, and like Yelm too. So some schools have like 30-40% of kids coming and going.
Right.
And in that kind of transitional kind of time, it's better to have standards which are kind of aligned. And the other part is they're aligned K-12, much better than what we have seen, all the, you know, that math and language arts.
Deborah, if I could add
sure.
just one more piece here. We've talked about how do we best communicate this with our parents as well in our district. What is our plan around making sure parents understand? Because there's potential. I mean, there's going to be very real change, and we've posted a video that people can access, and we have some information on our website about the Common Core. But there is potential to affect everything from the way student report cards look like, and how to help parents understand those who may be more accustomed to, and every district will do their report cards differently, but some districts will just be reporting out on the standards. Have those standards been achieved or not achieved? And for some parents who are used to an A, B, C, D, or a fail, will wonder, well, what does that mean?
Right.
And so we have a big job of educating parents as well. And it's going to take a while.
Okay. I did want to kind of loop back around to something you said. You're implementing a new math curriculum in the elementary schools, right?
Yes.
Has anybody else brought on a specific curriculum to Common Core for their students?
Yes, we have done. We have been for last 2 years working on the elementary mathematics. We had not done any adoption for a long time. This is more kind of online stepping stones. It has worked very well for us, and we'll fully implement it this year. We're working with all grades in elementary. And in reality, the other part, which is the reading and writing, the language arts in elementary, we are assessing that right now, what is available out there. So one of the things we are facing, all of us school systems around the nation, the people who produce materials, they are kind of a little behind, and sometimes, you know, we don't want to jump into what is out there right now, published materials, so that we are researching that. So reading is one of the focus areas for this year, while we are working with what we have right now, but also trying to adopt reading standards.
Mike. Good. Mike, I was going to say, you said you brought in a new curriculum.
Actually, in the elementary, we just and our reading scores we've been doing quite well in reading over the years, but we kind of plateaued. We've just adopted a reading curriculum that's specifically developed from the grassroots up to align with the Common Core, as opposed to one of those curriculums that they've said that they've modified and aligned with the Common Core. This was actually developed based on the Common Core. So it's creating a lot of work for our elementary teachers this year, but in K-5. But we're pretty excited that this will kind of give us a chance to move to the next level in reading. As Raj said, the math is, we don't see any math curriculum out there that we're ready to adopt because the publishers haven't aligned it, developed a really good aligned curriculum with the Common Core, as we've seen that. We adopted Bridges about 4 years ago at the elementary level, and there's still some gaps with Common Core with that, and we're trying to do that. At the secondary level, we're actually added some supplementary materials for both math and English language arts that align with the Common Core, but no new broad curriculum.
Gotcha.
So.
Andy?
I think in our world, we're using a lot of the open educational resources, which are online resources, because those seem to be the most current to Common Core. So, like the rest of the school districts here, not really willing to spend taxpayer dollars on a curriculum that may not meet the needs at this point in time. So some of the things that we've done, Mission Vision program, we're using that right now in our algebra program. It's Common Core aligned. It's a great little program that we've kind of stumbled onto. I think the other one is we've got Engage New York, which is a 7th grade program that we're doing, which is New York was one of the first states to go into that. And I think that's where it probably came out of this piece. So we have made some adjustments there. At our high school level, we've brought in our actually 7 through 12 Springboard, which is a English language arts program, which gives us a little better across the board. It has some great assessment pieces there that fit to the standards better. So everybody's making those adjustments, but I think we're all kind of in this, I would hate to say it, we're all kind of holding our breath, waiting to see what comes out. You don't want to get too far out into this and then not have it be an effective program that you'll have to change again in a few years, because curriculum adoptions are very expensive.
I was going to say, and when you adopt a new curriculum, just curiously, I mean, how long do you usually keep those curriculums in play before? Is it based on standards that are applied, or is that kind of a moving target? Is it always trying to keep up with what's coming at you, or can you put a curriculum in place and know you can use it for?
We would like to say, Yelm, that we would invest in that. You know, we try to go through the disciplines like every 6th year, but the problem with that is it doesn't hold up, you know, as a budgetary response, because they are quite large when you spend that money. So you try to balance that. The last you know, since I can only speak since I've been a superintendent, it's been very much a moving target, because curriculum demands and the standards as they've continued to change, and we've had, I think, 3 sets of standards now.
Well, and since we started this program, there was WASL, there was the assessment of student achievement, there just like it seemed like every 2 years there was some new assessment process.
I think all of our curriculum cycles are probably a little bit skewed right now from what they've been, because we're trying to be, you know, really trying to be as targeted as we can with our interventions for kids. So.
And fiscally responsible.
I would say in our school district, there had not been a major mathematics curriculum change in 13 years, and we felt that that was not acceptable. And what we saw after reviewing the curriculum before we made our decision were some pieces that weren't very well aligned, but it's a sizable investment. We've spent over $400,000 on our K-5 math, including professional development for teachers, because we feel like the New Bridges is well aligned, and we've increased the amount of time with math in the classroom as well dramatically. So it is a sizable investment, and as these 3 gentlemen said, major publishers want you to believe that their materials are ready, and they really aren't ready in so many ways, and so we're all just in waiting in some sense to make sure that what you purchase will align, and we all are on different cycles, but for our own district, that was far too long. 13 years is a long time, and I would say the same in our reading curriculum. So we'll be moving ahead. We'll be studying the English language arts curriculum this year. We won't make a purchase this summer because, frankly, when you adopt 2 new curriculums at elementary, teachers can't do that. There's too much to learn. So we'll space that out over 1 more year. But a year from now, I hope we'll be talking about this again.
And that is exactly right. I think what Dick said is really has been one of the challenges for all of us. Now we started working on mathematics, and to us too also, we have been more than 15 years reading mathematics, so it has been a challenge. But we worked on mathematics for the last 2 years, 3 years now almost, and we'll be done. But the reading, so because the elementary teacher is the same teacher, so there's only so much change and learning and training they can absorb. So we are kind of phasing it. So next year will be more of the reading, new readings, materials, and then training and expenses. So they're all part of this equation.
Traditionally, districts going back into the 80s, that's as far as I go back, had a 7-year cycle for curriculum adoption. Right. The recession we went into in 2008 messed up everybody, and I don't think anybody followed any kind of a cycle really after that. And then on top of that, we have new demands in math and English language arts, so those curriculums tend to leapfrog. So some districts, and us included, may have a social studies curriculum that's quite old, because they've been passed over a number of times because of the changes and the need. So it's a moving target a little bit, and it is a huge expense. And then the implementation, if you do it right, you have to support the teachers in their professional development. And the gentlemen are exactly right, is that you can't put too much on a teacher at one given time. You really need to give teachers probably 2 or 3 years, ideally, with a new English language arts curriculum before you'd hit them with a new math or science curriculum. So.
Well, that's a great segue into our next discussion, which we have every time we get together, which is budget, and what's coming up. And there's also, this is before the legislature will convene in January, obviously. So we don't know what's going on there. So it's kind of a joint topic, the legislature, what they're going to do, and your budget. So I'm not sure whether which is the chicken and which is the egg in this discussion. But so let's talk about budget. You've all mentioned that some of you, your enrollment has been a little flat. Some of you, your enrollment has gone up a little bit. Andy, I'll start over there on your end of the table. Let's talk about budget. How do things look? Budget and enrollment for this year. And
sure, our enrollment is up, and it's been up the last couple of years, and we continue to grow in Yelm. For Yelm, and as far as enrollment, since we passed our last bond in 2003, we're up about 900 students. And our OSPI projections, and also we used another private company to look at what we'd be at 2019. They project another 900 students in our area. So we'll be up about 1,800 in that situation, which is, we're out of seats. We're out of chairs right now for students. So that'll be a problem for us to go forward. As far as the budget piece, just the piece that I can talk to is that what I look at is the amount of levy funds, the local dollars that are having to use for basic education. And a few years ago, we were at 21%, closing in that 22%, where the backfill was the mom and pop out in Yelm. We're having to pay for that piece. As the legislature continues to find new dollars, we've seen an erosion in that, and that I think this year we're going to be about 17% of our levy will be for that, because we've seen some money come. And so the other side of that, from the legislative piece, it has been better. They haven't answered the needs that we have yet at that point in time. But yeah, we feel like that we're in a better spot than we were a few years ago, obviously since 08 or 09 during that recession time. So continuing to go forward, we think we'll be okay. Questions for us will be, when to run a bond again, which is Yelm has right now, because we don't have a big business infrastructure.
Right.
When you put a bond or bonds build, and then maintenance and operational levies operate,
Yeah.
You're asking your voters to carry quite a burden out there. And so we have to be very careful about that piece. But yeah, we feel like we're on the upswing enrollment-wise, and we think that we've got the budget piece contained for right now. However, there are big costs coming down the road, and curriculum being one of those.
Okay.
So.
Dick.
Our budget, I'm not sure most of the public understands the process which we go through to develop the budget. Next year starts now,
Right.
And it's driven by enrollment. And although our enrollment is up about 170 students, which we would call head count, sort of students who show up, your budget's affected by how long during the day students attend what we call FTE. And you're predicting your budget on how many students will show up. So even though we're up 170 students, that's lower than our projection. So probably about 50 students. So each student a little less than $6,000. That's $300,000 other dollars we're counting on for enrollment to increase. Now, if you look at that from the outside, you go, how could they miss it by 60 students? Well, if you think of 19 schools or 20 sites, that might be 2 kids per school,
right.
But it does have a cumulative effect. So for us, we're going to have to be careful. We had a contingency fund to deal with that issue, and we have a reserve. So we feel comfortable where we are, but predicting the budget is always a difficult task. And so we're up 170 kids, great, we like that. Down a little bit below our projections, but we're still solid where we want to be in terms of financials.
Well, and the fact that your population didn't hit your projecting, you mentioned there's like about $300,000 of revenue that wouldn't be coming in, but it's not
Maybe or more,
but it's not necessarily by not having those students does the expense decrease by that much?
No,
you know what
no.
I'm saying? So you've still got expenses.
Right, and if you have a small, say we have a small school like Boston Harbor and Madison, somewhat small. Those are great schools and they support communities, but they might have one single grade level, one classroom at each grade level, and some years those will be 25. Other years, there'll be 16. You don't close that class when they're at 16, although I suppose you could, but that's not something we've chosen to do.
Right.
So you never know where that's going to align.
Right. So, Raj?
Well, we let me sort of talk about where we have been. So we were really low in our reserve 4 or 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, and the economy was bad. But the student growth happened. During difficult times, our system continued to grow, on average 200 per year students. So we worked very hard, very intentionally, to be very prudent in spending where we spend and minimizing the expenses in overhead. So we are growing, but we did not add much resources to the district or overhead processes. So we are kind of close to 10% reserve, and I'm so proud of that. That's working with everyone in the system, our board and the community. And with that, if there is a little bit of dip this year. Mm-hmm. So we have, we hired 17 more teachers. If you see the number of students is the same. So we planned that there's going to be a growth, but it didn't happen. So it's okay. So our class sizes are a little smaller, which is good. And also with all the change going on, so I'm happy with that. But we can afford now with this hard work we did over the last 2, 3 years, 4 years. The part which I believe, as you know, I've said to this before, we are going to open a new middle school in 2016 for last 2 years. So now we have 2 middle schools which are transferred to 6, 7, 8. Format Nisqually is the second one we did. Chinook was the first one. The other 2 will be done together when the new middle school is built, which is under construction right now. I mean, it's started working on that. So also technology, which was, I think, related to some of our work. We talked about Common Core. So we added approximately 4,000 new computers for kids to Chromebooks and others to use in our system, which is almost 90% growth from where we were 2, 3 years ago. We had to save money and use the money, same money, and the levy we passed, this is now every 4 years. It used to be every 2 years. Now having the money available from the bond, which is, again, thank you to the community and our whole parent community, but our community at large, really supporting us. So we will use that very wisely for the backbone kind of work, security and technology and all of that. But on the finance side, I do believe that as we move forward with all the changes you heard, not only our system, school system, but every one of us in the state, we need more sustained resources, not dependent upon economy goes down and then we don't have the money. And so that kind of thing, I think, is one of the thoughts which goes through my mind. But in general, I would say it's an exceptional work everyone did in our school system, and the community really understood that, and that's why we got the amazing support, record support for our bond this past time. I know our colleagues we were all working together on that. So I think overall we are doing well, but it's as has been said, it's going to be really, really hard, a lot of resources needed and hard work by everyone as we transition to new reality for our school systems.
Mike?
Our enrollment is up about 98 FTE over budget, about 76 FTE over where we ended last year. Tumwater is an interesting case in that our enrollment has ranged within 100 up or down for the last 10 years. It's been within that range. Last year, actually, we hit our all-time high by maybe 5 or 8 students. Mm-hmm. And this year, we expect that by the end of the year, we'll be up again a small number. But it's a few years ago, like 7 or 8 years ago, we had our previous high. And then last year we had our actual highest. So we're pretty stable enrollment-wise overall, but we're going to see gradual increases, I think, from now on. The board we've passed a policy a year ago that our unrestricted fund balance is going to increase to 5.5%. We were concerned that we had in policy 4% when we went through the recession. And so as we get new funding, we want to make sure that we have a healthy reserve in place, and we'll hit that target by a year from now, next fall. So we feel good about that part. Another piece, though, that we're really looking at is if we do get quite extensive increases in funding, how to spend those dollars in the most meaningful way to impact student learning. And so one of the things that we're going to look at from the board level, but also staff-wise, is we have a pretty powerful strategic plan that we follow pretty closely. It dictates some of our school improvement plans. But how do we actually spend the new dollars in the most meaningful way? And this is a big question. And I think our communities are going to be looking at us pretty closely, because are we just going to spend it the way we used to and replace old dollars the way they were spent 5 or 6 years ago, or are we going to be more focused as we move forward? So those are questions that we're asking ourselves right now.
So what kind of wraps around this is, what, if anything, will the legislature do? And I know you all have crystal balls, so you can look through the crystal ball and see what's going on, and hey, they're going to do this. But the court has made it, the state Supreme Court has made it very clear they're not happy with the progress that the legislature has made on the McCleary decision moving forward. So have you guys any insights you can share?
I don't know about insights, but I think there has to be a human factor first. And I think that Raj and Mike and Dick have all alluded to the work that our teachers have done and educators across the board. And I think that one of the more important things right now is that teachers have gone without for 6 years, been no cost of living increase, and actually they've taken hits along the way, probably 3 times, and with insurance rates going up. And I know that's not uncommon from the rest of the world, but we've also put more time and effort, or they're putting more time and effort into what their craft is to make sure that our students are educated well. So I think that they need to be recognized, and I think the one thing the legislature can do is to respond to that initially. Every one of you, or all of us, can drive by our schools in the morning prior to the school starting or well after the school hours, and our parking lots are full, and those aren't parents. Those are teachers that are working. So that would be, from my point of view, I think that's a very important thing. I think they need to continue to look at the things that the MSOCs, how the operations and how that money comes into us. The transportation piece for Yelm's a big piece when they can come to that. But I think that ultimately, one of the things that we miss out as we look at the basic education piece as we go through this is the training of teachers. The professional development piece costs districts a lot of dollars. And I don't think that we have recognized yet that we pay teachers on this 180-day, type contract. And really, they're in that 180, they're doing way more than that. Right. And we need to do a better job of providing professional development and those opportunities within and without the workday, as far as how that goes and what we need to do. So I'm hopeful that they'll do there. As far as the legislatures, good luck to them. I think that they've got a huge job ahead of them this year. It's a big lift for them. I think there's other things that muddy the water. There's other initiatives out there that could cause some, derail some of those pieces. I know now they're in their bipartisan meetings already, which is the first time I've seen that since I've been here. They're actively working together, trying to find a resolution to some of these issues. So it will be a very long session, I believe. I don't think they'll get done till June, which that budget piece comes into play again. Yeah. And so, so that's just my, summary piece.
We've been through that before,
yeah, exactly,
too.
Right,
yeah.
So.
Anybody else?
Andy's done a nice job. I would say, I'd like to say our teaching staff are our staff in the district, and I agree all the time, and we don't. But I would say that I'm really in awe of what our teachers are expected to do and how they are performing. And so I would really second what Andy has to say about teacher compensation, but I'd push it a little bit more. We're on the verge in this state, I think we're all experiencing it, of people entering the profession. This is a significant problem that I'm not sure people are aware of. Our teaching force, people are retiring, they're leaving, and there are not enough quality people to take the place of those exiting the profession. And I think our teaching institutions, our colleges and universities are doing a fine job, but we're not finding enough people. We struggled, and we were out early, and we were recruiting, and I think each one of these people would say the same thing, that finding an applicant pool that can meet the demands of a teacher today is unbelievably challenging. And I think the people that are going into education that we're seeing, first rate, big improvement over the last 10 years. I really believe that, but there's not enough of them. And as we move forward, and if there are more dollars, or if a class size initiative passes, where do we find the people to staff those classrooms is a critical problem in this state.
And Deborah, as has been said by my colleagues, it's a tough job for our state legislators, and I know we elect them to make those kind of decisions. But here is, I want to start with really a celebration. You know, every year I look at the National Education Week. They give comparisons of states. They look at a lot of data on the academic side, finance side, all kind of different angles. So the last one was in January 2014, this year, but it will come out again. We as a state, for a lot of different factors they look at, are ranked number 9 in overall academic performance. Overall academic performance. They look at a lot of different things in that. So this is the people who have been doing it for a long time. Mm-hmm. Now, also a fact is that we are still in the bottom 10 states
for funding.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to per pupil, adjusted for regional costs, we are kind of 41 or 40, somewhere near that. And then another thing I look at this year, I paid a little attention to it. So if you put all the taxable resources in the state, we are again in the bottom 10. So you can look at different ways. I'm sure our legislators and other people who are working with them are looking at this. So all we are hoping is, you know, so when people say, well, you're already number 9, why do you need more? You know, but in reality,
imagine where we would
with
be
all
if we were
these
funded.
tough standards we are talking about, we are talking about competing in the world. We are talking about a state where technology and other companies are growing, and we have a lot more need. They have to bring people from other states and other countries. Why can't we be number 1 in the country in performance? So that's the way I kind of look at it. So for us, I think as a state, this is a great opportunity. It really is. If we as a state and communities want to come together, simplify some of our funding, and as been alluded, I personally don't enjoy a lot of the initiative stuff. You know, why don't we just fix the funding once for all, and then expect performance from us, which we are willing to do, but also give us flexibility to use those resources and not burden the local community again and again. And that's one of the other things. You know, local levies, as has been said, funding anywhere from 18-20% to 30% in the state. So.
Yeah. And we're fortunate that people support levies and bonds here. In a lot of communities, they don't.
Yes.
So,
as Andy said, our teachers have not received a state increase in salary for 6 years. In our district, our PSC classified folks have not received a raise in over 4 years. Medical benefits alone during that time have gone up 42%. So in real dollars, our staff are earning less today than they did 6 years ago. The demands on our teachers in particular with their jobs is at the highest level it's ever been, and they're stepping up to the plate. So part of this needs to look at how we support our staff, both certified and classified staff. That being said, in terms of the actual funding process, you know, we're hearing from the governor about eliminating loopholes. That's not going to take care of the problem in itself, even if the legislature can agree on those loopholes. They're also talking about funding education first, which is great in theory, but social services get racked. And then who takes over the responsibility of serving and dealing with those kids and their social service needs? It heads towards public education as well, which we're already doing too much. The way I would look at this is that if we don't come up with a new funding source, the problem is going to continue to exist. It says ample and sustainable, and we aren't funding amply, and we need to find mechanisms that will sustain us through the ups and downs of the sales tax, which followed the recession. So the legislature really does have their work cut out for them, and I know it's not going to be easy to do that piece. So
Well, having said that, we're kind of headed into the tail end of the show here in a minute or two. So I like to always have each of you give us a special story from the start of the new year, of the new school year, something that's touched you or that you kind of walked down the hallway and went, gosh, look at that, it made me so proud. I think everybody started, but we'll start with Raj and we'll go back around that way.
Actually, and I started saying this as I'll start with where Mike left. Our poverty, our free and reduced lunch rate increased 5-6% in the last 3, 4, 5 years, poverty, because of the economy. So we are 43, 44% now. And so we have a lot of need out there in the community. And it was so inspiring for me to see. I go to different schools, before we open, and there's an open house, and so Meadows Elementary. There was food bank people with free food. This is produce, beautiful, wonderful produce, and kids gravitating there and the families, and so I just want to say thank you to a community like this here, where we have places where kids, not only we're teaching them, to grow your own food, but that site. I took some pictures and Courtney put it on the website. It was just a very powerful scene that here is the community resources coming in and helping our community. But the other part I touched a little bit early, behavior, we saw almost 40-some% student behavior going down in the last 2-3 years. And that is amazing.
Behavioral problems.
I'm sorry. Discipline issues. Discipline problems, issues. And we have been thinking, how do we take it out into the community? As has been said, we are not isolated from the community. Whatever happens in the community, those kids bring to our schools, especially in poor neighborhoods, and because they are dealing with a lot of stresses. So we as a system came up with this idea, let's call ourselves compassionate community. We already do a lot of good work in helping kids on the social, emotional, whole child focus we have been working on. Now we are taking it out to the community as a compassionate community, and the city of Lacey is interested, and a couple of days, next week we are meeting with them. Hopefully that will be a major sort of initiative for us, educating our community how to be sportive and be compassionate to each other, but to our kids. So that is one of the most inspiring things going on in our school system, and I'm really very happy to be part of this group. So this is, again, teachers and principals. They're all offering, how can I participate and help? So that is one of the really new but most inspiring things happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike, how about you?
A couple things. In the past, Tumwater had what we called Tumwater U, kind of the kickoff of the year, and it's really a day wrapped around visioning and professional development for our teachers. We went back to that this year, and most of the professional development is provided by our own staff to our own staff. And the energy was incredible, and people were very excited. Some new technology that we're getting, there was some work on that, new math instruction. I even did a couple things. So it was a phenomenal day, and it made you just really proud and glad, because the energy was there and everybody was excited to get back to work. One of the things that we've been working on in the Tumwater School District for the last 2 years is increasing our graduation rate and decreasing our dropout rate. And we have a district committee that's worked on that. This year we actually received a grant in partnership with Together through United Way. And we have a couple of community networking program folks. I don't know the exact title. One on each side of our district that works with our middle and high schools on each side. And that's off to a phenomenal start. They're working very closely with our counselors and our administrators, and the basic concept is to intervene with kids early in grades 7 through 10, make sure they're on track to graduate, and we hope that this translates into a real difference down the road, so we can move our 84% on-time graduation rate up to the 90 level. So it's kind of neat, though, to be in that partnership, and I know that the Together group's pretty excited about our involvement with them.
Community groups, public partners, public-private partnerships. Andy.
Mine's more student-specific, and it's kind of a cute story. We've implemented the Chromebooks this year, which are tablets. And so we put about 1,500 of them out in our school system, and they're classroom sets. And I was watching one of the teachers doing a writing lesson with that, and so the students were all actively writing. And she hadn't quite explained to the students that she could check in and see all their writing as they were doing that. So she started editing one student's and he looks up and he's around and he looks at, something's happening to my writing and it's not me. And so she was writing some notes, and so it was just a great story about how that technology and the power of a teacher being able to, as they're working, instead of having to do that, actually making comments and going through and doing that observation piece was very great. The other thing, I'm going to go along with our teacher leadership team this year also. Amazing group. We've always had a really strong piece. We brought in a K-12. We've expanded to the K-12 leadership teams where teachers are actually doing professional development for other teachers. Great energy out in Yelm, positive people. The work they're being done is just so great, and again, an appreciation for that. So kind of a cute story, sitting in the classroom and then just watching what teachers are doing. It's fun. So,
great.
Yeah.
And Dick, how about you?
I'm going to talk about a few student things. We serve a broad spectrum, and just to create a context here, we're really proud of our students in our high schools. We had 8 National Merit semifinalists this year, 7 alone at Olympia High School, which is really pretty phenomenal. Those are great kids, and I like to think we played a role in helping those kids be successful, and we're proud of them, but like Mike has talked about, we have a real focus on graduation. Our graduation rate moves from 88 to close to 90, and our board has been unbelievably clear with me. They said, we want 100%. We don't even want to talk about percentiles. We want to talk about kids, and we don't want to talk about individuals. And we've started a program where we have graduation specialists at our 2 comprehensive high schools doing some of the work that Mike's talked about, trying to clear away some of the obstacles for kids who can't quite make it. And we know that transition to high school is a really difficult time, that 9th grade, 10th grade year in particular. And so our focus is there. So there are kids at both ends that we're really trying to celebrate and assist. I want to give a special shout out to our middle school schools. Their performance on the MSP this year was great, absolutely great. And there was a big celebration around that. And finally, I want to give recognition to all of the kids across the state. There's about 700 students arriving over at Capitol High School from around the state today for the State Leadership Conference, and I get a chance to go over and talk to those students. I firmly believe this, that the students that are coming out of our high schools now, the expectations that they have on them, the amount of work that they're doing both in the school and outside of the school, is amazing. And I'm only speaking for myself. It's far more than I did in terms of expectations and performance. And I'm excited to talk to those 700 leaders from across the state and celebrate what they're doing.
Right. Well, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our first roundtable for the school year, and our first roundtable, shameless plug here, in TCTV's new high-definition production facility. We're thrilled to be able to make this facility available to the community to bring you programs like this one, or to help you create a program of your own. So call us here at TCTV or go to our website, tctv.net, to find out how you can get involved in the TCTV community and our digital media education process. So, thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Remember, if you're the parent of a preschool child, read with your child 20 minutes a day. It's one of the best things you can do to get them ready for school, and throw in some counting games to get them interested in math. If you're the parent of a school-age child, get involved with your child's education. There are many ways that you can volunteer in your child's class or for school activities. Go to your school's website or talk to your child's teacher or principal to find out how you can get involved. Thank you for joining us here at the Roundtable. For all of us here at TCTV, we'll see you next time.